You don't want me to serve you? No problem. Edit, formatting and grammar. This just happened yesterday. Sorry if there are formatting issues, I'm on mobile. So for a backstory, I work in a bakery in a medium-sized grocery store. Apart from baking and slicing and packaging breads, pies, and other pastries, I also have to clean all the dishes and clean my department floors when I work the closing shifts. A mid-shift worker also helps with the responsibilities until their shift ends, along with the department manager, who usually leaves a couple hours after my shift starts. A few weeks ago when I was working, I came from the back where we wash our dishes, to help this lady, we'll call her B, who was standing near our counter by the bread slicer with an attitude. I'm assuming she was mad she had to wait because the mid-shift worker was busy with another customer. I came over and she tossed the bread on the counter and just said, "Slice this." Rough day, no problem. I just want to get her out of here, so politely say yes ma'am, and I grab a pair of gloves and start to put 'em on. B, you're not going to wash your hands? Me, oh no ma'am, I already washed them before I came out here. B, bullshit, I don't want you to touch my bread with those nastier hands. Me, I mean I can wash them again if you want. B, you know what, don't bother. B then goes to another department and asks for our department manager, and then starts yelling at him in front of the bakery and other people, pointing at me saying that I don't wash my hands and that I'm disgusting, and ends up calling me a cracker. How outdated. My manager tries to calm her down and ends up washing his hands and cutting her bread to make her leave. I explain the situation to my manager and he basically says next time just wash my hands by one of our sinks next to our front counter, but if she comes back and tries causing a scene again to let him know and he will tell her to leave. After talking to the store manager, he also told me the same thing. Fast forward to yesterday, B comes back later towards closing time where both the mid-shift and department manager are both gone, so I'm the only one working in the bakery. She's holding bread to be sliced again and hasn't noticed it's me when she asked me to slice her bread until I reach out my hand to get the bread. She stops and said, "No, you're not helping me," with a rude look on her face. I immediately smile and say, "No worries. Have a nice night." And I walked to help another lady and then walked in the back to clean dishes. A few minutes later I hear yelling, "Excuse me," so I walk back up and, "Yes ma'am." She gives me another rude look and says, "B, is no one going to help me?" Me, "No ma'am. I'm the only one in the bakery." B, "Then wash your FC King hands and slice my bread." Me, "No ma'am, I'm not serving you, I'm sorry. Have a nice night." B, "You are slicing my FC King bread, you have to." Me, "No ma'am, you told me not to serve you. Have a nice night," and I walked in the back to clean more dishes. B ends up throwing her bread on the ground and my store manager comes and tells her she needs to leave for causing a scene and threatens to call the police if she doesn't leave. So B leaves, but not without more screaming and naming calling, but she leaves. I tell my store manager what happened and he told me I should have handled it better and that I instigated her to get angry and to get a hold of him if that ever happened again. Whatever, it felt great. Too long, did not read. Lady told me not to help her, so I don't. She causes a scene because I refused to help her and gets kicked out. That poor bread was innocent. Well done. Not sure how your manager didn't ban her fascist ass from the store. Your manager should have kicked her out the second she started throwing racial slurs around at you. This guy is a coward and that sort of behavior is unacceptable. Your manager is a worm, skeptical smiley face. Wow. In the world of shiny spines, your manager's is number 808,080. I'm sorry friend, I'm glad you stood up for yourself, and to be honest you were much kinder than you should have. You can't help those who don't want it. I worked in restaurants for 22 years. And have only refused service to a couple of people. Anyone suggest a sub that will restore my faith in humanity? Entitled woman should be arrested for bread abuse. She came in looking for a fight. Not your fault. Your manager let you down. Sorry. This happens all too often in customer-facing jobs. All my sympathies. You handled it perfectly, Imo. She didn't want you to serve her, and she was being rude and aggressive. So yeah, manager should have backed you up in this. I think you handled that perfectly. She was being rude and condescending. She did tell you not to serve her and she got what she wanted. I'd have told her to pay for the bread she threw on the floor before leaving, or I'd call the cops on her for ruining merchandise. The moment the weird cracker left her mouth, she should have been asked to leave and not return. Thanks for editing. Much more readable now. It's only racist when it's against non-whites. Pisses me off. Great story, but your manager was right. Great stories aren't good for business or safety. You'd already been told to call them if she came back. You should have done so the moment she refused to let you cut the bread, and then responded to everything she says after that with, "I've called my manager here, they can handle this," with all that said. I'm glad you didn't do the safe thing so that we now have a funny story to laugh at. Only thing better was to not engage after you said no the first time. With people like that, you just have to show them the rope and they'll do the rest. When I know I have to deal with a difficult customer and wish I could outright refuse, I just say stop doing such and such or I'll have to stop serving them, i.e. swearing, threatening, and they'll more than likely do it again. Dust your hands off and move on. Manager can't say shit if you tried. Okay, but hear me out, wash your hands. Doesn't matter that you came from the back where you already washed them, even if you wear gloves while doing that. When clients see you washing your hands in front of them, it just makes them at ease. The customer was horrible, but providing malicious compliance to a customer by not complying with your boss is going to turn out bad for you. N not B. Makes me feel good about when I worked retail and actively told people to get the fuck out of the store or I would be calling the police. I learned really fucking quick how little patience I had for the general public. Another thing, you make my cute cashier girl cry and we're going to have a problem. She's like 17, she doesn't need that shit. I don't need it either. I ended up quitting too. Even if the DM had to get so many calls from disgruntled customers. I never got more than a slap on the wrist about it. I actually did a lot of stuff in our district with the DM, so maybe actually knowing each other really helped. I think she knew that I wouldn't kick someone out of the store for no reason. That bitch was going to get angry no matter what. Instigated my ass. Is it just me or is it weird that customers don't slice their own bread or that it comes pre-sliced? In my country either you go the store where you have to slice it yourself, or you go to the bakery, where they take the bread from the shelf behind the counter and slice it for you. You cracker ass. Your manager needs to start acting like a manager and not a simp to loud customers. An easy fix is to ask her to wait for the manager. The longer it takes for him to show up the better. She can stand there and stew. Respect. Good for you. I loathe managers that blame their employees. My old manager like 10 years ago, a customer was yelling at a cashier, who was about 16, and the manager told him he can't treat her like that. And if he does she will call security to have him escorted out. I'll always remember that and I've always been on the side of the employee in the small management positions I've been in. There's no winning in a situation like this honestly. Use your right as an employee to refuse service and have a customer scream, manager comes, she gets kicked out, you get reprimanded. Or, call the manager before she starts screaming, saying she was causing trouble before, and the manager reprimand you for not being able to handle things on your own and calling the manager for no reason. That story reminds me of a guy the first encountered through a phone call, who wanted to go on about how, through some sort of app, he knew I wasn't working in an office, I was, lol, and that he wanted someone who was actually at work to help him. Well, sir, I am at work, so I will be helping you. No you won't I can say, no, we're not going to go down that road. What I'm going to do is, my job, and then I'm going to ask if you need anything else. So he ranted a while I did my job. Me. Okay sir everything is good to go. No it isn't, you can't be, it is indeed good to go sir. Go use product, and you will see. Have a nice evening. Op. The voices in my head while getting chewed out again, snicker ha ha snicker, that was so funny. Ha. What was that you say boss? You need to put a backlash before an asterisk if you're going to use it to censor words, otherwise you get lots of unintended italics. Turn into, fuck that racist ass bitch. Any boss who lets a customer treat a staff member like that is a shit boss and you should quit. Holy shit you need a better store manager he sounds awful. A lot of retail workers tend not to act on it for fear of getting a write-up or fired some other kind of retaliation, especially younger workers, but you do have a right to refuse service to people especially people who insult, demean, stalk or act aggressively towards you. I can't tell you how many times I wanted to refuse to serve a holes who were just nasty people, but did it because I thought I had no choice. Wish I had the courage and confidence to walk out earlier. Any boss who lets their employees be treated like shit is a shit boss. You're my hero. This is the best story since sliced bread. But you didn't instigate anything. She already had an attitude and previous encounter with you where she didn't want you to help her. Then she has another encounter and blatantly tells you not to help her. Yes, you could have tried placating a little I guess, but she was going to cause a scene no matter what in that situation where you were the only one who could help her. Good on your store manager threatening to call the cops and kick her out, but they lose some points for lecturing you in the scenario you described. 40 years of being a cracker-ass cracker. I've never had my bread sliced. Am I missing out here? It's always better to solve things with non-violence. Some people only leave the house to make someone else's day worse than theirs. Imagine having to eat dinner with that person. Her poor family. I hope she paid for that bread she threw on the ground. Consequences. People pouting. I'll never get the customer is always right mentality you have in the States. How is hurting your employees' mental health and job satisfaction whilst annoying the entire customer population currently in the store worth the business of a single customer? And that's putting aside the oh so important human factor that somehow Americans just don't seem to understand. Having a pleasant day is more important than having another dollar. But for that mentality to stick, free basic housing, education, healthcare and food safety are so important for a society to properly function. The hero we need and want. I would have told her off the moment just threw the bread the first time for disrespecting food that she's gonna eat. But that's just me. You're an inspiration. Your boss is a dick. You handled it like a boss, very nicely done. And screw the manager. He's just mad he didn't get to do it first and he had paperwork to fill out. No matter what they claim, your job is not to take abuse, racial or physical or mental, emotional, that is the manager's job. Once they start being verbally abusive, they get one warning, then you walk away to get someone to toss their ass out the door.